So I thought I'd start with what's probably become the biggest change in the plans so far, and this kind of evolved as I've realised that uh, the original intention with these corners was never really going to work. So how I'd imagined these corners working was that there would be a back seam coming across there, and the rest of those corners, which led to the piece of baseboards against the wall, would effectively just be a curved piece of baseboard looking like that, really over nothing. But for various reasons that didn't work, and it became apparent that the easiest and most efficient way to do that would be to just stick some baseboards down, which I've now done. What that's given me, or I've realised it's given me, is four effectively isolated corners of the layout, which could actually lend themselves to being isolated scenes. There'll be back scene coming across here, so they won't really be visible or part of the layout and won't need to relate to any other part of the layout at all. I think the opportunity that's given me, because I think as many sort of previous videos and the previous layout would testify, is I'm kind of scared of scenery. I've never done it before. I don't really know where to start, and that was certainly evident in the last layout, in that there wasn't any. But I'd like there to be some in this one. It's a nicer environment to be in. I think it would lend itself to it more. So I'm starting to think that these four corners are actually real opportunities to just do four isolated little scenes, without the pressure of it having to fit into the rest of the layout, and also that can just be experimental. So I'm thinking maybe one, like these ones would lend themselves to maybe being some kind of a hillside, because the ground can kind of drop away. Obviously the track will run across the upper section around the edge of that curve. I'd like to maybe do a valley, and even one of them I'm really thinking of doing a level crossing, a functional one with lights and barriers, run by servo motors that would actually use the block detection to know when a train's coming and drop the barriers. I think I'd never considered doing a level crossing before, because on the main layout with 2 or 3 lines going in a loop, and the likelihood when everything's running of a train coming every 10 or 12 seconds, you're never going to have the opportunity to put barriers up and down again. But this line is a kind of an access line. It doesn't have to have trains running around on a loop all the time. There's only one line, so you don't have one coming in one direction, one coming in the other direction all the time. So I thought it might actually work as a functional level crossing. So yeah, that's my thinking, and maybe a valley as well. I'm thinking on the other ones, if I just move over to the other side, on this end, rather than have the curved piece of baseboard running around there like I have in the other corners, I'm thinking of chopping the baseboard along here and actually having that entire section raised so that it will support the line as it comes off this at its current level and goes around, because what that'll give me the opportunity, instead of having the kind of the baseboards going up in that direction, they'll be flat. So maybe that's the side where a level crossing would work, but also maybe have some kind of a valley as well, with a kind of train running through a valley in the earth. So yeah, I think I've probably got 4 ideas for 4 corners, and they take the pressure off really, because I can experiment on there, I can mess about, and it doesn't affect the main layout, which I think will be very good practice, and maybe hopefully give me a bit of confidence. So I've made reasonable progress with this side of the layout now. You can see it does go right down to the end there and across the wall, and the same behind me. I'm really kind of trying to plan where everything will go. I do have some AnyRail plans that I'm working to as well. The tape measure in the middle of the layout there is the length that the platforms will probably be. That's 2.5 meters along there, and really I think I can't do with anything smaller. There are a few trains that are that length, so I'm still trying to plan and make sure that I've got enough room, not just for those platforms, but obviously for the lines to fan out, if you like, as they come around the corner. They'll come around here in, I think, 4 lines, head around this corner. They'll obviously be raised 110, 120 centimeters above the level of the boards that are there at the minute, and then they'll fan out, and there'll be a station and kind of line preparation for the station taking up all of this side, I think. So it's just a case of working out, and I think more compromise as well. So we do now have these bridge pieces in that'll take the incline from one side of the layout to the other. You can see there's a pretty smooth join, and then we head off on this more bent plywood, which will hopefully straighten out once it's screwed down up to here. Obviously a little bit more plywood is needed here, and then there's where it ends, and obviously I'll need to build more. Well, again, similar to the other one, probably raise this baseboard here to the level of the track as it's coming out, rather than build another one of those curved bridges like we have on this side. So these curved raised platforms will probably only exist on this side and on the other side, just for the section of the track that's off the main layout, if you like, which is the bit across here, cut down here and have these bits raised to the level of the incline before it then heads off again up to the higher side, which is still very much in prototype. So I thought I might try and explain what's in my head and what my plans are here, hopefully with the help of some AnyRail diagrams that I'll kind of stick in the video later, so they'll maybe illustrate the point that I'm trying to make. So roughly the idea of the layout is there'll be 2 levels. One, a more scenic level with a station and kind of more organised lines, I guess, and then a lower level, which is obviously the one that I'm building here, which will have a couple of loops on it, will run round the back, and have a lot of storage lines on it as well. Some of it will be scenic, some of it will interact with the upper line. There'll be bridges, hopefully, where a line will go under another line, but a lot of it, like the stuff that'll effectively at the back here, will be hidden away, and I won't bother with any scenic work on it as such. So the lower deck line is, I keep changing my mind about it, but a real rule I think I've got in my head, and it'll be better illustrated over here, I think, is that the lower deck line can't affect the upper deck line, in that what I don't want to end up with is the upper deck line having point motors and things underneath the layout that I can't get at. So my golden rule, I guess, when I've been doing the design is wherever the lower deck runs, it has only enough baseboard to run on, and it doesn't go directly under the upper deck at a point where the upper deck has turnout motors. So it does run under it at certain points, but not where there are likely to be turnouts. So my current thinking is I'm trying to avoid, because it's a loft layout and it's an oblong, it's very easy to not fall into the trap, I guess, but end up with just a few ovals. I say just because that's really what it's going to end up being, and really it's unavoidably so. But I'm trying. It's funny, when I started out, when I had the first plans, it was very symmetrical. Everything that happened at one end tended to happen at the other end. But as I've gone on, because I've come up against kind of issues that I've needed to work around, that's kind of changed a bit. So at this end, the raised bit here will be a station, and the tape measure there is probably the platform length, about 2.5 meters, I think. So the immediate issue with the station is going to be to fan out all the lines, get around platforms, and use the width that's available, and also hopefully leave, especially at this end, a little bit of room for scenic stuff around the station, and not just fill the whole thing with lines. So the storage lines at this point will be running behind the station, and hopefully I might even kind of cover it up at least where I can. It's going to get more difficult as the incline raises, but at the bottom bit maybe cover some of this bit up as well with more scenic stuff to do with the station. But anyway, it's the lower deck lines will come around and start to curve here and come, I think, at this end as close down here as they can, like really narrowy. So there'll be third and fourth radius curves coming from over there, and they'll come down here. The upper deck will be over on this point, so I'm going to need some vertical struts, I think, in here to support it all properly, because I don't want to just cover it all in baseboard again, because if I cover everything in baseboard at this level, it's going to cover up access to point motors and things on the upper level. So leave as much of it open as I can. So at this end it's going to come down here narrow. There'll be some turnouts. There'll be a set of points here, 2 sets of points on the upper deck, so it's going to come down here narrow, but then once you get to about here where the points are finished, it's going to come out a little bit, turn out, and then, which I'm a little bit worried because it's going to be a bit of an S turn, so I'm yeah, still wondering about that one. But current plan is it comes out and then it heads off down this direction, which is at the near side where all this junk is where the storage lines will be. So there'll be maybe 5 or 6 storage lines for each of the 2 lines that'll be running down here. They'll get themselves sorted, and then they'll obviously go around the corner again down at the other end. And once we get down to this end, I think there's going to be a little bit of a difference. And again, this is a change to what the original plan. The original plan was it was going to be very symmetrical. But actually what I realised was, because of the way it worked, the inside line is going to be coming very narrow down here because of the way the storage lines have worked over there. So there's going to be a line coming down really narrow here. And I could probably get away with a second radius curve, but I really want to avoid them if I can. So what I think I'm going to do actually is, the 2 storage lines that are coming off here are going to come across here and end up running down the outside of here. So at this end, whereas on the other end you kind of had this S-bend thing going on there, because these are coming in narrower, I think actually they're going to curve and go effectively outside of the layout a little bit, which will mean I'll need to move the baseboards back, the back seams back, but I'll work that out. And I might need to put a few extra little supports in, because I've measured it out. Obviously they're not going to compromise this space, which I kind of need for human space, for getting behind things. They're not going to compromise it too much, because they're probably going to run along there, aren't they? That'll be the outside line of them, but that keeps them out of the way. They'll go under the upper deck, which will still come around here. They'll go under the upper deck here, which again gives nice opportunity for some scenic work, a bridge, that kind of thing. And then they'll run way up across here, still staying wide there, and then curve in as I come around here, curve in, and then go on and meet the loop again, and that will be the lower deck. And the upper deck will run at a raised level. You can see it's kind of prototyped a little bit here. It'll probably be a little bit higher than this. I've got these that might work, these adjustable feet that twist and kind of raise. I think they're just furniture feet, but I think they might work as easy to work with supports for the upper level, I think. So see down here there'll be all of the storage lines for the storage deck, and the upper deck will run further behind it. So again, there might be, although I'm not intending for this area to be scenic, there's probably going to be some kind of opportunity for some kind of hill or something. It has to blend in somehow, so that's what I'm thinking there. But these will be much wider radius curves. They'll run around and then kind of head to the station, which I guess will be the focal point of the upper deck. So in bringing the incline around, which I'm going to have to do, you can just see it through the trusses there as it makes its way to this side over at the end. I'm probably going to have to extend the baseboards for the upper deck in order to go and meet them. You can see that far line is the space for the incline line. So similarly as I did to over the other side, I'm going to have to cut the length of that board to take the line. Well, actually not this one, because this is the one where they're all going to meet and there's going to be turnouts, but similar size boards, cut the length to support the incline as it drops away effectively from here, climbs from the corner and comes up here. So really in doing that, I'm going to end up with a lot of the baseboard in place, at least down to that corner at both sides, for the upper deck. But that's probably where I'll leave it until I've got the lower deck working and got all of the things I'm planning to do tested and working. So once the incline's done, get the lower deck done, and then really test everything, test all the ideas I've got, whether that's, you know, the point motors, the relays, block detection, and test the lower deck as well, because a lot of it's going to be covered up and less accessible once the upper deck goes in. So get it all tested, make sure it's reliable as it can be, and then move on to the upper deck. So a little bit more on the symmetry I was talking about before, and the reasoning for putting the lower deck lines on the outside of the layout on one side and kind of keeping it within the bounds of the end on the other. The station, if I come round a bit, again, because of long trains and that kind of thing, you can still see the tape measure there, the 2.5 meters. If that's the length of the platforms, it's really, I'm already running out of space for, if I've only got a couple of lines coming round, spacing them out, getting points in, splitting them out in order to fan out into different platforms. And I was also restricted when I could do that, because I kind of thought, well, if I haven't got the room to do it on this side, then I'll do it on the ends before the track turns the corner, so that the tracks are kind of already fanned out and in the right places to spread across platforms. But the problem I had with that was I've also got the lower deck coming along here, and therefore there's only a certain amount of space within here that I can put the turnouts that I need. Hopefully, again, this will be accompanied by some shots on the screen. Well, I should say that the whole AnyRail thing, it's been changed so many times. A lot of the tracks are wonky and joins. They didn't see any point in making it all look perfect. As long as everything's not quite as wonky when it's actually up here, I don't mind the AnyRail diagram looking wonky. That's just you know, for a guide, I guess, and to get ideas down. But anyway, yeah, if down here I've got the lower deck coming down the inside of there or wherever it's going, then I'm also, at some point the lower deck has to fan out here to get around that corner, and so it's therefore restricting the amount of space down here I've got for turnouts. So that's really what led me to testing out the idea of bringing especially on this narrow turn here, where it's come from the inside of the storage lines, the storage yard lines, come down here and then right across here under the upper deck, but under it early, down onto here, down the outside, and off around up there. And that keeps it completely out of the way of the upper deck, which is coming along here, of the 3 or 4 lines of the upper deck, which gives me opportunity to put more points in at this point and have the lines ready as they come around the corner to go into the platforms, which in turn, again on the symmetry point, means I can move the station. If I just put this up a little bit more, I can move the station, instead of being right in the middle of this side, I can bring it further towards this side because the lines are ready when they come round. And that, again, that'll help with a lack of symmetry, remove the symmetry, because I'll probably do all of the points over that end. In fact, I will do all the points over that end, because the lower deck's still underneath the upper deck over that side, which again gives a bit of variety. And I do like on I put on the 3D view how it'll look as the lower deck goes under the upper deck a couple of times over that end, and I do like the look of that. And again, it gives you scenic ideas and that kind of thing, and something that I'd like to put on the layout. So yeah, the rationale, I guess, behind it and how I've come to this conclusion is fanning the lines out, moving the lines off the layout here and bringing them right around the edge gives me more space down here to prepare the lines for the station, which means I can then bring the station closer to this end as the lines come round, while maintaining the length of it and then on the other end probably still have the turnouts there just for the variety and the move further away from the whole symmetrical look. So I've done a bit more sawing, and I've got this kind of back right platform in. This is one of the raised ones, so this is coming over I think it's at about 80mm height by this point in the incline. So this is raised baseboard. I haven't cut the curve out of this one like I did with the others. I've just cut it so that it's got a little bit of a leg heading off up. Well, that's not raised yet. In that direction. Although it's worth saying, I think, although I'm aiming for these to be level, I'm certainly erring on the side of increase in height. So it's often difficult with this measure to get a 0.0 absolute level. So I'm making sure that if it's not level, it's raising slightly, because I'm dealing in millimeters. I certainly don't want to lose a couple on a corner. So yeah, if anything, a very slight increase as the track goes around here. And then off not very far now to meet the top level. So I think that's about 20 minutes worth of waffling, so I'm going to stop now. I've got a free weekend ahead of me, so I'm really hoping to get this all linked up and maybe start looking at track and cabling, that kind of thing. That would be fantastic progress. And yeah, I'm going to stop going on about insulation at some point, but it's been a really hot few days, but still really bearable and really pretty cool in here. So I'm starting to get hopeful that I'm not going to be stopped by the summer.